Okay, tonight we're going to do the spiritual transition from bubble juice, which I have to admit, I had to do some Google searching to figure out what bubble juice is. We got two different theories on what it is, actually, but maybe we'll give both. But this is the period where what we do is a spiritual transition. Can we transition from something that someone gives me in the chat room, in the Striving for Eternity Academy, those who watch live, by the way, only, 8 o'clock Monday nights. You can go to strivingforeternity.org to go to the Academy, watch live. You can chat. In the chat, you give me some transition to like bubble juice. I get a transition from bubble juice to the gospel. Okay, so I did a quick Google search on what bubble juice is because I had no idea. And what I got was two things. One thing that I got was that bubble juice is something to do with Harry Potter. Some potion or something from Harry Potter. The other thing that came up is that bubble juice was a 1 gallon thing of bubbles for soap bubbles. So I'm going to go with that one since that was the one that the person who put it in said it was. So can you transition from a gallon of soap used for bubble machines or for blowing bubbles to the gospel? Maybe you're at the park and you see people there, they're sitting there and they're blowing the bubbles. You know, I actually have a friend of mine, she has this like this big ring and she puts it in and blows these huge bubbles. And all the kids come and they love to see these, I mean, huge bubbles. And then she gets to share the gospel with the parents that as the kids are, then they're trying it and she shares the gospel with the parents. Neat idea. But can you transition from someone that's doing big bubbles or playing with soap bubbles to the gospel? Here's going to be my attempt, and you try it and see how you would do. The reality is that you ever see the little children are amazed. I mean, they're just simply amazed at bubbles. I mean, it's just soap and water, right? But it blows these bubbles, and they have a fascination with taking the bubbles and just blowing them and seeing how many bubbles they can get, seeing if they can get 2, seeing if they can get a whole bunch of them, see how high they can go, how long they can last, how big they can make it, all kinds of things that kids like have a blast just doing. Sometimes they try to see how many they can get, so they just dip it in the soap and just wave it really quick. But it's really getting high tech now because there's even bubble machines. I've seen that where you pour the soap, mixture, the bubble mixture in, and it just sits there and blows bubbles. I mean, so much that has gone into nothing but a big bubble that bursts in a second. I mean, they don't last. I mean, the longest one it's going to last is maybe a minute. In the reality of our life, that soap bubble is just gone. I mean, it doesn't last. Sort of like our lives compared to eternity. When you think about our life, 70, 80, even 100 years compared to eternity, nothing but a soap bubble. The question we need to ask ourselves is what is going to happen the moment after we die? When our soap bubble life is over and we're standing before God, how will He judge us? Well, He has a standard in which He is going to judge us. His law. Have you ever lied? Have you ever stolen? Have you ever been angry? Because God says if you're angry with someone, He judges that as murder of the heart. So if we look at God's standard, we'd all be guilty. We would deserve hell because God is infinitely holy, infinitely just, and because of His nature, we have an infinite consequence. But God made a way of escape. Infinite God, who is outside of time, came into time as a man, died on a cross to be the payment of sin for you and I. And just like our life will be like a vapor, like a soap bubble, gone in seconds, so we'll face God, and there's a day appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. That soap bubble is short as could be. Our life will be over before we know it. We're going to stand before God. We never know when our day is going to be. 160,000 people die every day. Today, get right with God. Repent of your sin. Turn from trusting yourself as a good person. Trust in Jesus.